Greetings, dear entrepreneurs and innovators. Welcome to Mission2Mars Academy online podcast, where we connect you with the world's most inspiring innovation and technology leaders and share best practices of technology entrepreneurship and innovation from all over the world. I'm Tatiana Indina, and today we will speak about doing business in China. China today is the biggest competitor to Silicon Valley in its technology and innovation sector. And for global entrepreneurs, China today is the most desired new market with thousands and millions of new users. And it attracts more and more founders from Silicon Valley and all over the world. And according to the latest World Bank ranking, China is the #1 GDP per capita economy in the world. What are some of the opportunities for your business in China and how to bring your company to Chinese market and how to succeed there? Other things we will talk about with China's insider and our guest today, Vadim Krekotin. Vadim Krekotin is a serial entrepreneur with over 9 years of experience doing business in China. He is a founder of a number of technology startups and a business partner of CBE Oriental company that is serving as a bridge for global companies coming to Chinese market. He also specializes in technology and innovation sector. And today, Vadim will share his expertise on how to do business in China with our audience. Welcome, Vadim. Thank you for finding time to share your experience and insights with us. And our first question would be, I guess, tell us a little bit about your story and your company in China.
Hello, Tatiana. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in your online event. So it's my pleasure, and I'm so proud to, share my expertise about how to live in China, because I live here for more than 9 years and done several different businesses. Started from logistics, importing the goods, and some IT startups. So yeah, I think maybe some of my experience can be useful for your audience to learn from it.
So doing business in China. China today is a growing, most popular emerging market in the world. Can you please tell us about some of the challenges and opportunities of doing business in China for foreign entrepreneurs? And let's speak about the opportunities first. Why Chinese market is so attractive today for global companies?
Right. So if we're talking about the China today, we need to understand that China developing so fast. And it's not the same China like, the one day when I came here, because that day, Chinese economy was like on a very, let's say, of course, not so early, but quite early stage. But now Chinese companies are quite mature. We have a Tencent, we have Alibaba, we have Baidu, we have Jingdong, and a lot of huge companies who are conquering the world right now. They not only focusing on the Chinese market, but they are looking for exposure to the global market as well. And of course, Chinese people, they're looking for more like innovation kind of projects. They're looking for, bring more convenient kind of like things to their life to fasten the process. So first of all, if you think about the China, you need to understand like every country have like a kind of specialties, right? So for China, we have here a huge population, right? It's more than 1.4 billion of people who live in such a territory. And for the China government, it's always like a challenge to provide the, the best kind of like most comfort kind of environment for them to live there. And they have a lot of incentive program. So if we're talking about Chinese kind of Chinese government, right? And a lot of startups, a lot of companies, huge companies, giant companies, medium companies, and startups, all of them looking for the solutions for that. Just for example, why WeChat, that is a subsidiary company of the Tencent, why they become so popular? Because just in one simple messenger, you can combine all these kind of features like a payment solution, like a messenger. Also, you can order the food, order the taxi. You can send some kind of, let's say, red envelope that have some money inside, like a present for some holidays, etc. So it's all about like how to simplify the process, how to make the things more comfortable.
Thank you, Vadim. And now let's speak about challenges. What are some of the risks that entrepreneurs need to be aware of? For example, we hear a lot of stories about Chinese governments or regulations, and how does that affect technology sector today? What global entrepreneurs need to be prepared for when doing business in China?
Of course, it's a lot of things here in China that you need to keep in mind. What I'm talking about the Chinese government, majority of the people here in China, they support the government. They like the incentives they have, and they're always looking for some kind of like government policies that can simplify the startup or the company growth. Because if the direction of the startup is right, and also supported by the local government, not only federal, but the local government as well, the startup can grow very fast with a lot of help. And I don't mean only the money, like, some kind of investments, but it can be some resources. It can be simplifying of the of the process to register your company, taxation as well, etc., etc. The same story can have two sides, and a good side, and let's say like a shadow side. And that when companies here in China receive some support from the government, foreign company or Chinese company, both have some kind of typical process they need to go. If we're talking about the Chinese company and the Chinese founders of the company, of course, the process much more simple than for the foreigner. Even right now in 2019, the process much simpler than before, but still it's a lot of limitations. If we're talking about some, let's say, kind of sensitive areas, for example, like a media or finance, or it can be ecology, etc. Some very these kind of like sensitive areas. Of course, for foreigner or for foreign company, it's quite challenging to receive all the package of the document. So not only to register the company, but it also requires some licenses, certificates, etc. So Chinese governments, they trust for the local people and not so much trust for the foreign, let's say, entities for that kind of areas. So the only way to make a business in that areas is just to find a local partner who can be the really like a helping hand and make a business together. Also, one of the biggest question for the each company is the finance, right? So for financing, actually for company growth in China, it can be quite easy, right? So even from the investment sides, from the some kind of like support from the local companies and the government, and if your business is quite attractive and the business model is good, you can grow very fast, but it's only limited inside of the China. So if you want to transfer your money from your Chinese company to, let's say, US company, even if these two companies have like mother and daughter kind of relations, it can be quite difficult because China have a very strict policies about the transferring money from China to abroad. and company have to prepare a lot of documents, a lot of proofs that this is absolutely legal, that just a company from China transferring the profits or part of the profit that already taxed, so that you already paid the tax to Chinese government. So this is quite challenging, but still company can grow inside China and make it very fast. So if the company keep growing in China and keep spending money in China for some period of time, there is not a big problem.
Thank you, Vadim. I want to ask you, what kind of businesses do you see today coming to China from global markets on the first place? Are those technology companies or some other industries? And if you could speak specifically about tech sector and technology entrepreneurship, how would you describe innovative ecosystem and innovation technology ecosystem of China? What makes it different from places like Silicon Valley or the rest of the world? And is it the most successful and prosperous innovative ecosystem in the world? Can you see it from there? And how this ecosystem is beneficial for startups? What are some of those benefits of China in terms of technology, entrepreneurship, and innovation?
Now we see that Chinese not lacking of money. And we're talking about investment institutes, we're talking about government, we're talking about the successful companies. And of course, they are looking for new technologies, for some good solutions on the market. And it can be a variety of the technologies. So of course, majority of these technologies is related to internet technologies, right? So something you can do, like, for example, very popular right now is the internet identity. It's about machinery as well, how to improve, production cycle, how to decrease the pollution in the country, because ecology is one of the problem here in China. So China is looking for medical treatment. So all these kind of directions is improving here and improving very fast. Also, all the technologies and some new products that can be interested for the kids, because here in China they care about the next generations, and maybe you have heard that they had a policy for only one family and one child for quite long, more than 40 years, and now they cancel it. And now Chinese can give a birth to unlimited kind of, like, kids in the family. So this is a kind of directions. Also, one of the very famous and direction that everyone focus here in China is AI. So artificial intelligence is definitely the direction for the whole globe right now. But here in China, I think that even the statistics I saw a couple of weeks before, China is #1 in the world for AI right now. And it's very important for the same, like for the first question you asked, because they have a huge population. They need to understand how to simplify, how to make the process more automated. So AI definitely is the one of the most focused kind of direction for the Chinese companies, for the Chinese startups. Machine learning for sure. So data centers, cloud providers who are in China right now, they're developing very fast. And yeah, this is kind of directions that are developing right now. Also, we need to mention that food production and all the supply chain for the consumer goods is very important here for Chinese, because the same question, they need to feed the population, and provide the quality foods, need to control the supply chain just from the beginning. So these kind of directions is very important.
Speaking about Chinese culture and coming to China and bringing your business to China, because I know that that was a part of your experience as a foreign entrepreneur coming to China and bringing your business, your family to China. So what are some of the main features and main specifics of Chinese culture that will affect business, that entrepreneurs need to be prepared for and take into consideration? For example, cultural aspects of management, of building partnerships, of business etiquette, of negotiations and business meetings. So what are some of the most remarkable features that are different and also defining for China?
This is the very important question because culture and mentality, this is something that are very different with the Western culture and mentality here in China. Of course, you know, we need to keep in mind that China also developing, and a lot of modern Chinese, let's say, young generations, they also have an experience to study abroad in Europe, in United States, and after that they come back to China, so they already have understanding how to cooperate with the let's say rest of the world, and it's much easier to cooperate, to work with them rather than with the old generations, with the people, let's say like a 50 more years old, and they still have the very kind of traditional point of view for the, you know, doing the business, how to make deals, how to handle the negotiations, all these kind of things. Mentality in China, it's very important, and they are very supportive to each other. People trust to each other. I mean, in China, they have this kind of term like a guanxi, it means like relationships, and they also use this kind of term frequently, very frequently, because they rely on these kind of relationships when they're doing the business. They prefer when the family members inside of the companies. They prefer when the friends or friends of friends inside of like this kind of circle who help them to grow, right? But if the person come from the rest of the world, come here and can prove that credible and reliable person, and can do the business together, and if Chinese people can see the benefits of the cooperation, they can be very trusted as well. So I can rely on them, you know, with a lot of things, but still can be cautious with the choosing your partners.
We know about Asian cultures that are more tricky than Western or European cultures that are pretty much straightforward. We know that in Asia, it's more delicate culture where things are in between the lines, where exactly traditions are important and rituals are important, and this whole value system and like very old history that is definitely influencing those business traditions. And we know also that it's more conservative culture, and the reputation and authority is important, and your connections, the recommendations are always important. And we know that Asian people like rarely would say you know straightforward, right? Or they would not proceed to negotiation immediately, right? So it's like it takes time to build those relationships and to build trust and those things that you were talking about. But still, do you think it's possible for the incoming entrepreneur to be successfully integrated in this culture? And can you maybe list some of the examples or success stories of foreign entrepreneurs successfully doing business in China and becoming equal players on all this business landscape?
Actually, you just mentioned absolutely a good example about Chinese culture, that they are very respectful to the elder generations, and about the connections they have. I have Chinese friends, I mean, like very good Chinese friends, and I deeply can understand their feeling when they're talking about the business, when they're talking about the family, when they're talking about just a simple kind of things surrounding us. So definitely it takes time. My relations and my sympathy to Chinese people changed when I started to learn Chinese, because when you understand language, you can understand a lot of like culture, um, culture and mentality kind of specialties. So you understand that these people, they really have this 5,000 year of the culture and, you know, story. So and a lot of these kind of like flashbacks from the story, they have an influence to the modern people. They still respect it from the childhood, from the kindergarten. They start learning some kind of like very traditional stories about the tigers, dragons, you know, these kind of things. Of course, they do realize it's not like, you know, 100% true, but they have this kind of like imagination. They still respect this kind of myth about the, you know, ancient animals and ancient heroes that still have like, you know, this kind of influence to their life.
Amazing. I can see you have a lot of cultural insights and stimulation there that enriched your life in so many ways. How can a foreign entrepreneur become local in China or successfully adapt to Chinese environment, Chinese culture in order to feel comfortable doing business in China? We understand that it might be not possible 100% to become a Chinese person in China if you just came a year ago, but how this process can become easier? What is your personal experience, and what are some of the recommendations, advice that you could give to other entrepreneurs how to do business like local person in China?
It's quite easy to do if you just do one thing. If you're open for new culture, for Chinese culture to become a part of you. So for me, it was quite easy. So when I came here, I found my friends, partners, and when inside of like a Chinese community, we do business together, we make money together, so we're pretty enjoying it. The biggest mistake for foreign people, I mean foreign people, like for Chinese, to come here to China and do the business the same way you're doing the business in United States or Europe or any other country. So you need to be flexible. You need to understand that you have some kind of you know, good things that you can bring here, and people here are gonna value it and gonna respect it. But at the same time, you need to adjust to the situation here. You need to be flexible to cooperate with the people here in China. One of example for the companies, better to look at some giant companies, and especially like yeah, of course they have a lot of foreign companies here, like McDonald's, like a KFC. They have companies doing some food like a Nestle or some beer companies. One of the very good successful story here is the Starbucks, because Starbucks made a very good job. But the thing is, they have a very good partners. So very good local partners here. So even I can tell part of my story that I made 3 successful companies that I already exit. And this is the successful companies. To be honest, I made 3, 4 more companies that failed, and it's very normal for a serial entrepreneur. But the thing is, you know, when I analyze my story, I see all 3 successful companies I made together with the Chinese people. When I have a very good partner I can rely on, I can use the connections, and he can use my connections all over the globe, and my Chinese connections as well. But this is the kind of, you know, collaboration of the 2 worlds that making a very good profit for each. And when I tried to make a business just by myself without the partners, or if I have a foreigner like a partner, it was much complicated. And it was hard to do, and the growth was not so fast. So I decided not to proceed. So this is my own experience and kind of resolution I made for myself, that any other business I gonna start, and any other business I gonna recommend for, to start for some of my friends, or definitely need to find someone who can guide you, who can show you how to make things happen. Because if you find the right partner, if you find a right local person who can make a, kind of green lights everywhere, this is the key question. Also, my personal experience, I think only 3 or 4 years after constantly living in China, I really start to realize a lot of like inner kind of things. Like a very deep kind of understanding of the culture, how to cooperate, how to make a success. Because first years was quite challenging, and it was like adjusting times.
So, speaking of mistakes, you already started talking about it a little bit, but I wanted to ask you for your recommendation. What are some of the specific steps strategically and also tactically that those global entrepreneurs need to undertake when they come first to Chinese market? So what would be the first steps, and what would be the main tactical steps for them to bring their business to China successfully?
Okay, so you mean the first steps here, right? Just if you know nothing about the China, how to make the first steps here. It's a very good question for sure, and I can say that it depends on the industry you do, because if we're talking about new technologies, some innovative technologies, so the best way to find policies about that is government support this direction, and what about the process, how to establish the company at that area, how to get support from the locals for that, because this is a very important thing for you to choose the direction, to actually to choose the next steps, what exactly you need to do, because if you have a lot of support, if you have this kind of incentives from the government, or any local kind of companies, it will be much easier to do. If you don't have, maybe you need to just think twice to start it or not. Also, like a first steps, I always recommend people firstly just to visit China, like a tourist, like or business trip, to meet potential partners, to meet some kind of buyers or sellers, or whatever. It depends on the business, right? Because for people who never been in China, it's very hard to understand. Very hard to understand it. It's a lot of rumors all over the world about the China, how the people really live here. What I can say that China right now is the modern, very developed country. It's not cheap to live here, and of course it's different between like a first tier, second tier, third tier cities here in China. It's still like a huge gap between like salaries and level of like of the livings here. But majority of the foreigners live in big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, mostly these 4 cities, and just visit China and find a potential partner, talk to them.
How critical is the language part? Do you speak Chinese fluently? How long did it take you to learn that? And is it critical for your fellow entrepreneurs to be speaking Chinese, or can you do business with just English?
Very good question, because language barrier is still one of the biggest questions for Chinese people to become global, for Chinese companies, I mean, to become global, and for foreign companies to get in China. Because Chinese people are learning English and learning fast, and they have a lot of English schools. They start learning even from the kindergarten, but still the average kind of level of the English is quite poor. So it's a good luck for, for the foreign person if he can find a partner who can speak fluent English. And the majority of the times it's when the founder or the person who you are communicating already had an experience, living abroad. But for the people here in China, better to find someone who can at least translate, like make some translations. For me, I have no these barriers, so I start learning Chinese even before I come here. Like I learned Chinese for more than 2 years, and then when I came to China, I realized that I know nothing about Chinese, because it's two different kind of things when you learn it from the books, even from I learned it from Chinese people. Sorry, so my pronunciation was pretty well, but the way how Chinese like communicating, it's not the book kind of language. They use like some kind of different kind of words. They simply can just simplify the language, so they're not so like a formal like in books, and etc., etc. And of course it depends on the industry. So even some Chinese, we have different Chinese languages here in China. Even like sometimes people from north of China cannot understand people in South China. So it's still quite challenging. So for me, it's simple, because when you speak Chinese, when you understand Chinese language, it's easier for you to understand the culture as well. They usually use some kind of example, so it's very hard for foreigners to understand when they use some kind of example, the name of some hero from like 2000 3000 years before, who challenged with like a tiger and he won, and they use it in your current situation when we're talking about some kind of like technology part, and they are combining all these kind of things inside of their minds, to have this kind of example, how to find a solution, so it's very, very interesting sometimes.
Speaking of more pragmatic aspects, such as visas and like company registrations, like some of the IP registration, for example, for tech startups, how hard are those things in China? What are some of their recommendations that you can give, or like some of the basic overview of like how this procedure will look like for incoming business owners?
For visa, it's not very hard to get it, especially for US citizens. Usually with the US passport, you can get a 10-year visa for like 60 or 90 days staying here. It's going to be like a business visa, and like a tourist visa also quite easy to get. So for the first steps, it's not a big problem. For the constant living here in China, of course, I recommend to establish the company first. And when you have a company, you easily can get a business, working visa. So your own company, or maybe your partner company, can provide permits, like a working permit for your visa, and you can stay here for 1 year, for 2 years, without limits. So of course, we're talking about the companies who can bring the value to locals. So this company should pay some tax, should rent office, should hire local Chinese people who work in this company, and in that way, local authorities definitely going to support people to stay here, to spend money here, to make more money here. So it's not a problem. For the company registration, this is the same question. You need to have connections. You need to have all this kind of like understanding how it works. For all these details and all this kind of like deep understanding how it works, I give it to my Chinese secretary, who helped to to get the license, if we need some special license, to establish the company faster than it's gonna be if I do it by myself. And it's not very expensive. Usually to establish the company, it costs something around 2,000, 2,500 US dollar. And for right now, it takes for the foreigner something around 1 month. So it's quite simple. But what can be very challenging is the same that I mentioned before. It's about the licenses. So it depends on the business. It depends on the area the company do, and for that part, definitely needs to consult with the professional company secretary, who can provide a very, very good consultation and understanding how to make it happen.
Thank you, Vadim. So can you just tell us where those incoming entrepreneurs can find those local partners? What is the best way to find a local partner? And what other resources, other than finding this local partner, they would need to make their business activities in China happening?
My partners, I usually met from the networking. So because I already live here for so long, and to be honest, it's not the same when the first time I came here. So for right now, if I need to reach someone, I just pick up my phone and see it from the from my connections. If I know someone directly, or someone who I know can know someone who I need to reach. But for the first step, I would recommend to visit some festivals, expos, whatever, like seminars. It can be some these kind of events when people from the industry visiting this event, and they are providing their expertise, they are sharing what kind of things they are looking for. So this is a kind of a concentration of the people who you are looking for, and it's going to be easy to at least to get maybe like hundreds of the name cards, and after that start to understand who is the really potential kind of the partner, or if you are matching with this person, with your direction, with your vision for how to do business, etc., etc.
Sure. So speaking of CBE Oriental, can you guys be local partners for any of the businesses, and which particular businesses you can be helpful to? Also, if you could tell us a little bit more about some of the services and programs that you have. I heard a lot about startup roadshows, and then some of the corporate executive education innovation programs in China. So can you please tell us more about this, and to which specific businesses you can be helpful, and in which roles?
So for CBE Oriental, yeah, we're looking for the good companies who have an attitude to come here to China, and we're open to talk. We have a lot of connections in the IT industry with like giant companies as well, with the middle-sized companies. So yeah, we have some kind of standard tours when we can invite several businessmen who want to come to China, and we're gonna make a plan to visit some companies, to meet local potential partners or providers, or can be suppliers, buyers, whatever. It depends on the business, right? Also, but what we prefer to do actually is to individualize the process, because each case is different to other cases. So when we see the very good perspective for the company here in China, we can make a tailor-made kind of plan for the company. What kind of person need to meet, what kind of person need to, connect, and what exactly kind of, profits and kind of things we can get together from that, because what we're really trying to do, to make a long story short, just to simplify the process as well, because just to use all my expertise, all my partners' expertise, because I don't know, like, unfortunately, or maybe just occasionally, I'm the only like a foreigner in my team right now, because all my partners, they are local Chinese. And actually, like, for me, of course, it's a lot of benefits, because I have an access to a huge network. Majority of the times right now, we are choosing the companies who come or not, because if company who want to come here, but from the first sight, we can see that they are not suitable for China, or maybe an early stage, or whatever, maybe some kind of like potential difficulties for the company, and we can understand it from our expertise. We recommend them not just even to start, because the most valuable thing for all of us is our time. So we can have this kind of like pre-evaluation before the company can participate or any event or any kind of cooperation with us.
So if the company wants to come to China and have their business interests, so can they send you their profile? What kind of information do you need to do that evaluation, to be able to advise this company whether China is something that they really need to be looking forward to, or this is not for them, and why specifically? So what would be those evaluation criteria? Probably will be a longer question, but what would be at least the materials that you would need from this company to start your evaluation, and then to provide an advisory for their strategy in China?
Presentation deck, website is quite enough for us just to understand what's company doing, what's main situation right now, and of course, we have the main question: what's your main goal come to China? So it can be establishing the office, it can be find a partner, it can be fundraising as well, because some companies, they are looking for Chinese investors. So what we do, we just receive these documents, we review it together with the team, because I have more than 12 people right now in my company, and who mostly focusing on analysis of the company and helping with these kind of resources. So we have professionals from the finance industry, from the technology industry. So our team is a kind of like, we're doing the brainstorming for the company's information we receive. We do some kind of like internal scoring, and after that, we just giving some suggestions and advice for the company.
Nice. I understand this is more relevant to the startup companies, but speaking of larger corporations that also want to bring their businesses and products to Chinese markets, what kind of services do you provide to corporate teams and corporate leaders today, and what are some of the opportunities for them that we can help with?
Not for the startups, but for the companies who already well established on a local market and just want to find partners.
Or they want to bring their business to China, or they want to outreach to additional clients in Chinese market, expand their presence there. So what are some of the services, or what kind of assistance you can provide to those larger corporations?
It also depends on if company want to have a full presence here in China, or they just want to, let's say, get the traffic from China. So it can be users, can be followers, can be whatever it takes, right? So for the big companies here in China, actually also have a lot of like a support and incentives. So China is still on a growing stage. So Chinese people, they do realize that they want to have more partners, and especially with the big companies overseas. So they're very open, and for that kind of inquiries, yeah, still the same. So we need to understand what is the goal for the company or for the corporate to come to China to find a local partner or buyer, or what. So it should be some kind of specific information that we need to go through, and after that we can provide our vision and advice. We prefer to focus on the companies that we really can help, and the companies who are interested for the deep and real cooperation. So this is the, I think, basic for succeeding here in China. So don't need to rush, need to understand what exactly you want. Come here, China, try to find local partner, try to maybe with the small scale business first, and then go to the next stage.
Can you please mention some of the companies or partners that you worked with previously from global markets and who you helped to bring their businesses to China? Maybe some of the success stories or some of the most interesting stories you could share with us, and how you helped those businesses.
Right. So currently we have served more than 30 companies, and from the different business areas, and majority of the companies, they are focusing on innovative technologies. So this is a kind of like an area we pretty well understand how it works. So it can be related with the finance, it can be related with the healthcare, it can be related with the computer and all these kind of like data centers, cloud, Internet of Things. It's a very good kind of like a direction. We are researching right now, and we have a client who doing pretty well. For example, one of the company from United States, they come to China with the innovative technology, how to speed up the process and how to secure communication between the devices for the Internet of Things. This is the crucial point, and we bring them to the local government department who are in charge of it, Department of Communications. And they are very supportive. So they start to cooperate immediately from the first meeting. That actually very rare. So they exchanged documents, then they signed a memorandum of understanding, and now we are on a process when United States company provides parts of the technologies can be tested by the local specialist, and the next step we see that the company can be established here like a full operations cycle, and can receive investment from the local government to make the same thing that they already done in United States, to expand it to the local market, because they need to be adjusted for the local market with the language, with the local network, etc., etc. Have long list of the things they need to do. But the good thing actually for the company, that just after they start the business here in China, even like these first steps, the valuation of the company in the United States already started increasing, and a lot of investors from the United States who were like, thinking to support this company, to invest to this company or not, they already made investments to them. Even these kind of things, they are very related, because China is a huge market, and as soon as the company will be established here and start growth, it can be the next kind of step next milestone for the company to grow. So these kind of things, they are they keep balance. So when the company keep growing in China, it given a lot of things, a lot of good support for the mother company in a country of origin. So all these things are related. Yeah.
And do you believe that these companies you are describing, do you think that their path would be very different if they would not be doing this through you? Like, do you think they will have like more challenges, less success if they would do it by themselves? Would it be possible? Or like, do you really see how you play the role in this particular case?
Yes, to be honest, this company found us when they already had a quite kind of bad experience. So it's not the first time it's very usual when we take a company's already got some kind of, who got burned with some other kind of like experience. And this company, they tried to reach the person from the government by themselves, and they made it for more than 1 year. And they been on the same stage from the beginning. Then when we met, just on the next day, we arranged a meeting with the person they really need. And the process became very, very fast. And also for right now, when we already made the first, let's say like steps for this company, we can see the potential. So after we see the potential, we can also use our network connections to understand what's the next step for the company, because the real plan, the real execution plan can be far away from the, the plan we think, we keep in mind, even like, I mean, us or the company itself. So what we're going to do right now for this company, we want to send introduction and the current situation in China, current progress with the local department of the communication here in China. We want to send information about that to the companies like Jingdong, companies like Xiaomi. So it's a local producer of the mobile phones. Also, we already had a meeting with the China Mobile, huge mobile operator, one of the three biggest one here in China, and all of them are very, very interested to get this technology. So this is how it works. It should be start with the small steps, receive some kind of support, and let's say like, vision how to make it happen, find the right people, right network, and then it can become very fast, to grow. Yeah.
Vadim, I have a couple of questions left to you, just specifically for startups, because a big part of our international audience are startup founders. How does startup fundraising in China different from what happens in Silicon Valley or in other countries? What are the specifics of this startup adventure in China? Is it easier to raise money from local investors? What are some of the unique things that happen to start up, like in the fundraising stage in China? What to be prepared for, and how is it better than any other place in the world?
Here in China, they have a pretty good capital right now, and investment funds are pretty active to find new growing companies. Of course, have some kind of difference with the Western world and with the Silicon Valley, because in Silicon Valley, the culture of the venture capital, it's already like tens of the years. And here in China, it's kind of a new kind of new industry for people to understand how to invest and what's the life cycle of the company, how to grow the company to make an exit after the next rounds or IPO, whatever. So, but Chinese investors, they are very, very active. And, maybe the biggest difference you need to understand about the China investment field that there are two different type of the companies. The first type of the company is the Chinese funds, Chinese investment institute, which have a foreign account. So it can be offshore company in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Seychelles, whatever, BVI, but they have funds abroad, so they easily can invest in a foreign companies, in US company, European company, all over the globe. They can transfer US dollar or euro or any other currencies, and these type of the companies, it's not more than 3 to 5% of all the Chinese funds. So let's say more than 95% of the all Chinese money and Chinese institutes, they are limited with the China. And as soon as we know, and I also mentioned it today, that it's quite impossible even for the funds to transfer money from China to other country. So for that part, any company who wants to seek the funds from Chinese traditional institutes with the Chinese money, Chinese yuan should be established here in China. So it can be only made inside of the country.
Finalizing our interview today, Vadim, I wanted to ask about your personal experience. What do you find the most exciting parts of Chinese culture, of doing business in China? What are some of the things that impress you the most about people, about country, about its traditions, about these opportunities? And what are some of the things that you were the most surprised or impressed with when you first came? And what made you make this choice to stay in China and do business and live there?
To be honest, I'm pretty enjoying living in China. Sometimes I feel like a very local person here because I'm very familiar with the country, with the city I live, and I have a lot of Chinese friends. And for me, it's very comfortable to live here. First of all, it's very safe here. I mean, compared with a lot of countries in the world, it's a quite safe country. Second, it's let's say a lot of convenient things. Start from the WeChat and the WeChat Pay. You can use Taobao or Alibaba for just for like your personal kind of like things. And third, people here, when you do business with the Chinese for a long time, you can trust people, and the business can be very stable and growing. I think in the next decade, China will be developing also fast. So it can be more and more features of you can feel a lot of good things. You can find a lot of good features here in China. So it's very possible.
Thank you so much, Vadim, for sharing your experience, your wisdom, your advice with us today. We hope this was very helpful to all our audiences in all countries. We definitely invite you to come visit China to meet Vadim, meet his team, meet CBE Oriental, and see how they can help you bring your business to China and grow your business in China and build partnerships and collaborations with Chinese companies. Thank you so much, Vadim.
Right. Tatiana, thank you so much for the interview, for all the questions, very good questions. So it's my pleasure to share some of my experience, and I hope I can help people. So yeah, we're very open to cooperate. We're very open to giving advice to some companies. And if we can make a business together, we're more than happy to do that.